Fine. A very good evening to all of you. I welcome you all to this open session on discussion of GS Paper 4 Ethics. My name is Aditya and I'll be taking up with you in today's session, the discussion on case studies. I welcome you all. Let's begin our discussion. If we look at this year case studies paper and compare it with previous year's case studies paper, this time the case studies were more on the side of being easily doable. Most of the cases that we have today and that we'll be discussing today that were asked this year, they were such cases in which we knew already about some things, as in the cases are a bit common. We would have come across these things either in movies or in some other context. We would have come across these cases in newspapers, some issues that we commonly see, we regularly see in newspapers being reported, and therefore the ability to answer such cases, I think this year was a bit on the higher side. Having said that, even if the ability to answer cases was a bit on the higher side, doesn't mean that we will be able to write answers. As we'll see. In fact, this is something that is there in almost every question that you come across. Every question of case studies, every question in ethics, it seems like that it is doable. Case studies, they seem like they are quite doable. But when it comes to actually writing an answer to those case studies, that is what makes the entire difference in marks. We'll see today that the case studies that have been asked, it seems that we shall be able to easily attempt them, or at least there is some ringing in our mind that we'll see कि ये यहाँ पे देखी है, ये यहाँ पे सुना है, इस type से ये case हो सकता है. But when it comes to writing a 250 words answer to a case, that is where we tend to fall back. That is where we tend to be a little bit not so readily prepared. We think we know the answer, but when it comes to writing the answer, that is when the deficiency in our preparation gets exposed. We must be prepared to write those answers, and especially in such a manner that our answers are a bit outstanding, different from what everybody else is writing. It has been at least about 1.5 years since you have been preparing, and everybody is almost in the same boat. Your level of knowledge, your level of information is almost exactly the same as of someone else. You are no different in knowledge as compared to anybody else. What is different is how are you versus some other person is writing an answer. The question is easy, the question seems doable, but there is a lot of variation in marks. That variation in marks is basically due to how well or how ordinarily you present your answer. If you present your answer in an outstanding manner, in a manner which is liked by the examiner, that is as compared to others, your answer is a bit differentiated, then the chances of you getting more marks are higher as compared to otherwise where you will get only normal marks. Normal means quite low. Out of 10 you will get hardly 3 or 3.5 marks, whereas if your answer is exceptional, you may end up getting 5.5 marks. In case studies, if it's a 20 marks question, you may end up getting 12 or 13 marks versus getting only 8-9 marks. So that is the difference. At max 8 or 9 marks. So that is the difference. So the most important key which we must keep in our mind while writing answers, especially in case study section, is that our answers are able to stand out from others. Now, what is meant by this thing standing out? Standing out certainly does not mean that your answers are different, that your solution is different, that your solution is that I would go and मैं सिंघम बन जाऊंगा केस स्टडी के अंदर. जैसे हम पहली केस स्टडी देखेंगे वो सिंघम वाली केस स्टडी है, एग्जैक्टली सिंघम, सलमान खान या अजय देवगन इस टाइप की केस स्टडी है. So your answer should not be that I will do this, I will do that, I will show exceptional courage and I will try to kill all the mafia, वहीं पे सबका encounter कर देंगे या फिर पकड़ लेंगे, encounter नहीं करेंगे, पकड़ लेंगे. That is not the solution that the examiner is looking for. Examiner is looking for a solution given by a polished mind, by a mature mind. A mature mind thinks about the situation tries to draw the boundaries, then step by step, argument by argument, builds a case for action. I'll repeat, a mature mind knows the situation well. A mature mind does not behave in an erratic manner. A mature mind tries to build the case step by step, argument by argument, and then gives a mature reply to a situation. Your answer must be argumentative. Your answer must be such that it is filled with arguments and counter arguments. Why did you choose to do something versus not something else? Your answer must be such that it has proper weightage of merits and demerits, and then you finally make a decision that because the demerits can be addressed at least in the medium term, if not in the immediate term, or demerits can be minimized, or merits outweigh the demerits, that is why I will choose this particular course of action. This is the broad framework in which you should be presenting your arguments for a case study. By different, I mean this different. That is, it is argumentative. It is properly argued. आंसर आपका या किसी और का कोई डिफरेंट नहीं होगा, लेकिन 250 वर्ड में लिखना, उसमें पता चल जाएगा कि कौन कितना प्रिपेयर्ड है, कौन कितना प्रिपेयर्ड नहीं है. Writing an answer properly, that is structured answer, step by step, argument by argument, writing a structured answer is what will differentiate a mature answer from some casual answer. This is the thing that you should be keeping in mind while writing such long subjective 3 pages answers. Let's start our discussion with case studies with case study number 1, and let's see what is it that we should be writing in that particular answer. The first case is completely a Singham case. In fact, this first case study is almost a copy-paste case study from our ethics case studies material. We conduct ethics case studies session, ethics case studies batches every year. In those case studies sessions, we take about 9 to 10 classes where we discuss around 50, 60, 70 case studies, depending upon the time that we have. We discuss about 60, 70 case studies in those 10 classes. In those case studies, I take those classes. The first case study that we discuss, the very first case study which is there in our ethics case studies classes material is almost this case study. So this is almost 90% copy pasted from there. इसमें थोड़ा सा इन्होंने सिंघम वाला पार्ट कर दिया. Simply the questions are different as the context is the same which we have. Questions are a bit different. इसमें इन्होंने थोड़ा सा सिंघम वाला angle introduce कर दिया है. If you read Hindi translation of this case, तो आपको और मजा आएगा. एकदम मूवी की कहानी लगती है. Let's read this case and then try to answer then try to see what should be the answer. How should we approach this case? Sunil is a young civil servant and has a reputation for his competence, integrity, dedication, and relentless pursuit of difficult and onerous jobs. So therefore, an ideal civil servant is mentioned here. Considering his profile, he was picked up by his bosses to handle a very challenging and sensitive assignment. He was picked up, considering his profile. Important thing to note here. Considering his profile, he was picked up by his bosses to handle a very challenging and sensitive assignment. He was posted in a tribal dominated district notorious for illegal sand mining. Excavating sand from riverbed. Tribal dominated district notorious for illegal sand mining. Excavating sand from river belt and transporting through trucks and selling them in black market was rampant. This illegal sand mining mafia was operating with the support of local functionaries and tribal musclemen, who in turn were bribing selected poor tribals and had kept the tribals under the fear and intimidation. Sunil, being a sharp and energetic officer, immediately grasped the ground realities and modus operandi followed by the mafia through their devious and dubious mechanism. This part must be clear to everybody. This is the core part of case. ये core part of case है. इसके बाद तो it's mostly movie का case है, बाकी वाला case. This is the core part. I'll read this part again for you. He was posted in a tribal dominated district notorious for illegal sand mining. So this is where his posting is. Excavating sand from river belt and transporting through trucks and selling them in black market was rampant. this illegal sand mining mafia was operating with the support of local functionaries and tribal musclemen. The sand mining mafia is functioning with the support of local musclemen, local mafia, who in turn were bribing the selected poor tribals and had kept the tribals under fear and intimidation. Who were in turn bribing the select poor tribals and had kept them in fear and intimidation. Sunil, being a sharp and energetic officer, immediately grasped the ground realities and modus operandi followed by the mafia through their devious and dubious mechanisms. On making inquiries, he gathered that some of their own office employees are hand in glove with them. Some of their own office employees are hand in glove with them and have developed close unholy nexus. Sunil initiated stringent action against them and started conducting raids on their illegal operation of movement of trucks filled with sand. The mafia got rattled as not many officers in the past had taken such strong steps. अब तो सब समझ गए होंगे. चुलबुल जी की एंट्री हो चुकी है. Sunil initiated stringent action against them. सिंघम जी की एंट्री हो चुकी है. Sunil initiated stringent action against them and started conducting raids on their illegal operation of movement of trucks filled with sand. The mafia got rattled as not many officers in the past had taken such strong steps against the mafia. Some of the office employees who were allegedly close to the mafia informed them that the officer is determined. Your office employees who are hand in glove with the mafia, they have informed the mafia that the officer, you are determined to clean up the mafia's illegal sand mining operations in that district, and that may cause them irreparable damage. The mafia turned hostile and launched counter-offensive. The tribal musclemen and mafia started threatening him with dire consequences. His family, wife and old mother were stalked and were under virtual surveillance, and thus causing mental torture, agony and stress to all of them. The matter assumed serious proportions when a muscleman came to his office and threatened him to stop raids, etc. Otherwise, his fate will not be very different than of his predecessors. 10 years back, one officer was killed by the mafia. So this is the case that has been given to you. Case must be absolutely clear. It's easy to understand. You are a young civil servant who has been selected to a very difficult job because of your profile. I think the answer is already visible. Considering your profile, he was picked up by his bosses to handle a very challenging and sensitive assignment. The assignment is this, that you are posted in a district where illegal sand mining is taking place. Illegal sand mining is taking place, and it is taking place because of bribes being given at the behest of local tribal musclemen and mafia. Your office employees are also part of it. You are determined to take action. When you take action, the mafia gets rattled, they get rattled, and they start threatening you, they start threatening your personal life as well as come to your office and say that आपका भी वही हाल होगा जो आपसे पहले वाले ऑफिसर का हुआ था, 10 साल पहले एक को मार दिया गया था, है ना? तो I think the parallels with various movies are quite obvious. The question here is, identify the different options available to Sunil in attending to this situation. Critically evaluate each of these options listed. Which of the above do you think would be the most appropriate for Sunil to adopt and why? Various options available, critical evaluation of each of them, and which of the above that you have listed would be the most appropriate and why? How do you approach this answer? देखो, what is it that we are going to do in this case? That part by itself is not that important, because as I said कि ultimately आप क्या करोगे वो usually different नहीं होगा. I don't think so anybody would be writing an answer, especially अगर आप civil services के पेपर में appear हो रहे हो और आंसर लिख रहे हो. I don't think so anybody would be writing an answer that I would also involve myself in the corrupt activities. मैं भी bribe लूंगा, मैं पीछे क्यों ना हूं, मैं भी bribe ले लूंगा. I don't think so anybody would write that answer. I also don't think so anybody would write an answer plainly saying that I would stop all these activities of raids and all and I would comply with them. Again, I don't think so anybody would be writing such answer as well. And then neither would you accept to taking a bribe nor would you accept to going slow, as in to letting them off the hook. I think everybody will write an answer in one way or the other that I will take action against them. सभी लोग यही आंसर लिखने वाले हैं. I think सभी लोग यही आंसर लिखें. किसी ना किसी तरीके से आप लिखो कि जो है threatening a police officer is an offense and therefore मैं उसको उस वजह से जेल में डाल दूंगा. I would be very dedicated. I will develop the police force, carry out fast inquiry. Whatever way you want to write, whatever way you want to justify your act. Ultimately, I think everyone will write an answer that I will do this particular thing, rather than submitting to their wishes, rather than involving myself in corruption. I would take action against them. This is what I think everybody will be writing, and obviously this is what you should be writing. This is not what will separate. This is not what will fetch you marks. ये आपको marks नहीं दिलवाएगा. Marks दिलवाने के लिए आपको question पे जाना पड़ेगा. You have to look at the question and then see what is the question asking. Identify different options available to Sunil. Critically evaluate each of them. Which of the above do you think would be the most appropriate for Sunil to adopt and why? A mature mind, how does an officer address this question? An officer draws the boundary, an officer knows the facts, then step by step, argument by argument, closes all the issues. So first important thing for you is to identify what are all the issues involved here. First and foremost, the issue is there of answer कैसे लिखना है हमको? We have to write answer like this, that the issues involved in the above case are first and foremost illegal sand mining that is taking place. Second, illegal sand mining is taking place because of a well-oiled machinery, a nexus that involves local people, musclemen and sand mafia. Third, in that illegal sand mining business are also involved my own office employees, as in my own government employees as well. Fourth, because of the actions taken, there have been some personal setbacks or some personal challenges. They have threatened me personally with my life as well as life and security of my family members. So first you have to write down, identify clearly that what is it that is happening in the case. Then write down, given these issues in the case or given these developments in the case, as an officer, I have got the following options. Option number one, that I can go slow on the case initially so that it cools down, but at the same time prepare in the background of what can be done. Option number two, I can either become myself a party to the case or go either I can myself become a party to the case or completely stop the pursuit of such a case and let the status quo prevail. Option number three, I can double down my effort and crack down on all these things immediately. So these are broadly the three options available with you. Number one, either indulge yourself and indulge yourself in corrupt activities or stop your pursuit. Second, go slow, prepare in the background. Third, double down on your effort and then take action immediately. Broadly ये तीन options आपके पास available हैं. अब आपको इन्हीं options के साथ अलग अलग, along with these options, then you can try to differentiate your answer a little bit, that I will do this, I will do that. But broadly these are the three options available. Broadly. Ultimately आप इन्हीं तीनों में से कोई ना कोई काम करने वाले हो. Next, how do you evaluate these options? Write down the merits and demerits. What are the merits of going slow and demerits of going slow or stopping the pursuit against these people? Well, you can first and foremost enjoy your personal security. You can get a personal peace. You'll be mentally more sound, mentally more secure if nobody is threatening you. You may also reap some handsome personal gains if you become party to these, but I think obviously everybody is going to reject them. What would be the demerits? Demerits are clearly that this is not a sustainable option. This is not something that is expected of civil servant. It will lead to loss of morale of the entire department. More importantly, what it would do is it would give more confidence to these tribal musclemen to carry out such activities. Today they might be limited to illegal sand mining. Today their actions, their criminal activities may increase in scope because they know that taking action against them is not possible. And hence this will lead to anarchy in the district, and maybe that spreads outside the district as well. So hence such an option is obviously not viable, both on personal front as well as professional front. Second option, try to evaluate, give merits, demerits. Third option, try to evaluate merits and demerits. What is it that you will be doing? Going slow, for example. If you choose that I will go slow and build in the background, that would again demolish the morale of your workforce or morale of your officers. People who are involved in catching these culprits, their morale will suffer if you immediately go slow against them. At the same time, if you go slow and give yourself more time for preparation, then you may be able to build a stronger case against them. So merit bhi hai, demerit bhi hai. If you double down on your activities, if you double down, that there might be, certainly there is going to be some collateral damage as well. Some officers, their life may be in danger. Your personal life of your family, that may be in danger. But at the same time, results are more probable in that case. So again, there are merits and demerits associated with that third option as well. What is it that you do? How do you choose? Again, it depends upon what do you want to do. Your answer must be such that you are addressing the demerits. Agar aap third option bhi choose karte ho, if you are choosing the third option that I would double down on my efforts. What is the demerit? That there will be some collateral damage, definitely. Some officers might lose their lives. Some officers' family members might be in trouble. Your family is certainly in trouble. You are yourself in trouble. So all these things must be addressed if you are choosing the third option. अगर आप सिंघम बन रहे हो तो आपको ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा कि आप सिंघम नहीं हो. सामने वाला भी कोई जो है छोटा मोटा गुड्डा नहीं है. You must remember this thing. Obviously that is movie stuff. This is actual civil services stuff. You take on mafia head on, you must recognize that there are issues associated with it which will have personal consequences. You recognize it. You cannot ignore that thing. Ignorance is not what is required. Ignorance is not what is appreciated here. Recognizing the threats that you have, your family has, is important. Addressing those threats is also important. So therefore, in your answer, if you are choosing that option number 3, that I will double down on your effort, you write down that I will ask for and make sure that more security is provided to my family members as well as family members of the officers involved. Or I would ask for assistance from central government that this has to be done immediately because there is a strong case against such people. You are recognizing the threats and then taking action for those threats. If you choose your option that I would go slow initially, build a case in the background, and then once I have got solid evidence, solid facts, then I would act quickly. Hunt like a leopard. You are trying to build your case slowly, and once you have built your case, then you sprint as fast as possible so that there is almost no chance that your prey gets away. So in this case, you must make sure that you are recognizing the demerit, that the officer's morale might be disturbed. Officers might think that the person has let go of the mafia. The people who are involved, they might think that you are going soft on them. When you go soft on them, the mafia might also think that you are now on your back foot. This must never be the case. You must always let everybody know that you are preparing a solid case so that you can attack against them. When the time comes, you will take stringent action against them. Right now, you are gathering solid evidence. This must be known. Before taking action, you get evidence. You gather evidence so that your actions become legitimate and undeniable. You get the support of the system when you act. So this is what you can write in your answer. So point is, whenever you are writing your answer, you must clearly write down the options that you have, analyze their merits and demerits, and when you choose something, you must recognize the demerits and see how can you minimize or address those demerits. वो होता है एक mature answer, rather than सीधा लिखना कि मैं ये कर दूंगा वो कर दूंगा. नहीं, कर दूंगा नहीं. आंसर में ये नहीं लिखना है कि क्या कर दूंगा. आंसर में लिखना है जो करोगे उसके कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस क्या हैं, क्या रिकॉग्नाइज करते हो. और अगर रिकॉग्नाइज करते हो तो कैसे उनको एड्रेस करोगे? सेम थिंग इन इंग्लिश. इन योर आंसर व्हाट इज मोर इंपॉर्टेंट, व्हाट इज लेस इंपॉर्टेंट इज व्हाट विल यू डू. व्हाट इज मोर इंपॉर्टेंट इज when you do something it will have some consequences. When you do something, how do you plan to mitigate those consequences? That is the most important part in your answer. That reflects a civil servant thinking mind. That is what you should be writing in your answers. आगे बढ़ते हैं. Let's move on to the next question now. Question number 8. You are vice principal of a degree college in one of the middle class towns. Principal has recently retired and the management is looking for his replacement. There are also feelers that the management may promote you as the principal. In the meantime, during annual examination, the flying squad which came from the university caught 2 students red-handed involved in unfair means. A senior lecturer of the college was personally helping them in this act. Lecturer साहब भी लगे हुए थे साथ में उनको हेल्प करने के लिए. This senior lecturer also happens to be close to the management. One of the students was son of a local politician who was responsible in getting the college affiliated to the present reputed university. So let's say you are in a college, the politician's son has been caught cheating. The politician is one who was responsible to get your college affiliation from a reputed university. Okay. The second student was son of a local businessman who has donated maximum funds for running the college. So there are 3 people here. One is the senior lecturer who happens to be related to the management, who happens to be close to the management. Second and third are the students who were caught cheating. Second one is the son of the politician who has done so much ehsan for the college, got the college affiliation. Third is son of the local businessman, again so much ehsan for the college that he has donated a lot of amount for the college. You immediately are informed that you immediately inform the management regarding this unfortunate incident. The management told you to resolve the issue with flying squad at any cost. They further said that such incident will not only tarnish the image of college, but also the politician and businessmen are very important personalities for the functioning of the college. You were also given a hint that your further promotion to principal depends on your capability in resolving this issue with flying squad. In the meantime, you were intimated by your administrative officer that certain members of the student union are protesting outside the college gate against the senior lecturer and the students involved in the incident and demanding strict action against the defaulters. Discuss the ethical issues involved in the case. Critically examine the options available with you as vice principal. What option will you adopt and why? Again, केस ऐसा है कि हमको लगता है कि सुना हुआ केस है, काफी कॉमन सा केस है. As I said, cases are such that you know about such cases. आपके किसी फ्रेंड ने आपको ऐसी केस सुना दी होगी इस टाइप. You come across these cases. These are quite fathomable cases. You would have fathomed them. You would have thought about them that okay, this is possible. What will happen in such a case? These are those scenarios mentioned here. But what is it that we are actually going to do in this case? Discuss the ethical issues involved and critically examine the options available with you as vice principal. What are the ethical issues involved here? The core ethical issue involved here is about cheating. Second ethical issue, I'll elaborate on these in 1 minute. The core ethical issue involved here is cheating. The second ethical issue involved here is with respect to dealing with incidents of compromise of integrity. Should you compromise your integrity in such situations or not? Basically, an issue of conflicting interest. Let's discuss these issues. There are basically 2 ethical issues involved here. First is that of cheating. Why do people cheat? Why does somebody cheat? People cheat because they value some things more than learning. Some things meaning marks or getting pass. People value marks or getting passed in the exams as more valuable than learning. That is why the focus is to get marks rather than to learn. You have been taught a particular value. हमारे mind में क्या value है? Value is that learning is not important, getting marks is important. You attach more value to getting marks rather than to learn, and therefore your whole focus is on getting marks, not to learn. And since your focus is on getting marks, you try to get marks in whatever way is possible. If your focus was on learning, if you valued learning more than marks, then you would have tried to learn. Rather, what you are doing here, you are trying to get more marks, or in this case, merely pass probably. So the focus is, the value that you have given more importance to is that of getting marks, and that is why you are cheating. So that is the first ethical issue involved here. The second ethical issue involved here is, what should you do in such cases? As in, what is it that is compromise in such cases wherein your personal integrity is telling you to do something, whereas the personal interest tells you to do something else. It's in fact not even your personal interest. You may not even have an interest in all this thing, but there is somebody else who is putting a pressure on you that this is how you should be acting. There is an issue of crisis of conscience. Your conscience says that these people must be reported, adequate action, strict action must be taken against them. But somebody else is telling you to, or pressurizing you to do something else. That becomes another ethical issue in this case. The ethical issue can also be stated, the second ethical issue that we are talking about, this can also be stated as ethical issue pertaining to interference of management in running the affairs of company. A little bit corporate. Interference of management in running the affairs of school. Management is supposed to manage the school. Management is not supposed to tell what should the school administration do when it comes to academics. Academic decisions must be left to, or academic issues must be left to the academic part of the school or the college. Management of school has managerial decisions to make. Academic decisions are not in the domain of management. So that becomes an important ethical issue. Interference of management in running the academic affairs of school or academic aspects of the school, in this case college. So these are ethical issues involved in this case. Critically examine the options available with you as vice principal. What are the options available with you? One option is that you turn a blind eye to them. Second, blind eye to them as in you cannot turn a blind eye. You have to deal with the flying squad. One option available with you is that you try to convince the flying squad on behalf of the students who are caught cheating. I'll repeat. One option available with you is to help the students and that lecturer negotiate with the flying squad on behalf of them. Second option available with you is to assist the flying squad in deciding what quantum of punishment should be awarded to them. These are broadly the two options that you have. One is कि आप उनकी पैरवी करो, सेकंड इज कि आप उनके लिए सही काम करो, एज इन उन्होंने गलत काम किया है उसके अगेंस्ट पनिशमेंट आप पनिशमेंट देने वाली अथॉरिटी की हेल्प करो. These are the two options available with you. I'll repeat, the two options available with you are, number one, either you negotiate with the flying squad on behalf of that senior lecturer who was caught assisting and the two students who are caught cheating. Second option is that you assist the flying squad in determining the guilt of these people and assisting them in pronouncing adequate amount of punishment or fine, whatever is suitable for these people. What is it that you will do? If you pursue the first option, then there is some sort of pressure by the management upon you that may reduce your chances of, let's say, becoming the principal, because the post of principal is now empty. There might be an issue with respect to there might be an issue with respect to your with respect to the relationship between the school's management and the politician and the businessman. There might be such issues. However, what are the issues when it comes to what are the merits when it comes to assisting the flying squad in such in this case? The merits are that, number one, a wrongdoing is punished. Children who are not cheating, they are unfairly treated when somebody else cheats. It sends a wrong message to others that merit is not respected, hard work is not respected. As an academician, as the present vice principal, in absence of principal, it is your duty to uphold these values of competition and fairness. It is your duty to ensure that exams take place in a competitive and fair environment. You must give a message to everybody that exams will be taken up, nobody will be punished because they are not able to cheat. Nobody will be allowed to cheat. Nobody will be allowed to cheat. Exams will be fair for everyone. You should be able to give this message to everyone. At the same time, you should be doing what is right. Rather than becoming a principal by compromising with the management, this becomes a slippery slope. Management can ask you to do something else immoral, unethical, illegal at a later date. Therefore, you must clearly portray your sincerity towards the interests of school here. You should convey to them that the interest of school are best served when adequate amount of punishment is provided to these people, and that will come only when we recognize the guilt of these people. The reputation of school is at stake. The reputation is at stake not because the school protects two children. The reputation will not be protected because the school protects these two cheating children and a professor. The reputation will be at stake reputation will be decided on the basis of the manner in which the school handles this incident. This incident is now in public domain, as is evidenced through students who are protesting outside. The manner in which school handles this incident is what matters. What happens because of the politician or the businessman is not of your concern. As a vice principal, it's absolutely of no concern to you. आपको आंसर में कुछ लिखने की जरूरत नहीं. There is no need for you to write even one line. एक भी चीज एड्रेस करने की जरूरत नहीं है. ये जो आपको लिखा हुआ है ना कि politician was responsible for getting affiliated, businessman is giving lot of money to your college, absolutely no need for you to address this. All this is written in the question so that you get into this trap of addressing these unnecessary things. आपको इन unnecessary चीजों को address करना ही नहीं है. At best, one line that the relationship of the college with the businessman and the politician might be solved because of this. At best, it's not one line more than this. There is no need for you to write कि वो donation नहीं देगा, वो अगर उसने affiliation करवा रखा है तो वो affiliation revoke भी कर कुछ. There is no need, absolutely no need to write anything about that. This is what you should be writing your answer. How you should be writing your answer. Ethical issues, options and their critical evaluation. We have done critical evaluation. ठीक है, चलो. Let's move on to the next question. Question number 9. An elevated corridor is being constructed to reduce. Again, this is one of those questions which many of us would have seen through, would have come across such questions. Let's see. An elevated corridor is being constructed to reduce traffic congestion in the capital of a particular state. You have been selected as project manager of this prestigious project on your professional competence and experience. The deadline is to complete the project in next 2 years by 30th June 2021. Since this project is to be inaugurated by the Chief Minister before the elections are announced in the second week of July 2021. While carrying out surprise inspection by inspecting team, a minor crack was noticed in one of the piers of the elevated corridors, possibly due to poor material used. You immediately informed the chief engineer and stopped further work. It was assessed by you that minimum 3 piers of the elevated corridors have to be demolished and reconstructed. but this process will delay the project minimum by 4 to 6 months. But the chief engineer overruled the observation of the inspecting team on the ground that it was a minor crack which will not in any way impact the strength and durability of the bridge. He ordered you to overlook the observation of inspecting team and continue working with the same speed and tempo. He informed you that the minister does not want any delay as he wants the chief minister to inaugurate the elevated corridor before the elections are declared. Also informed you that the contractor is far relative of the minister and he wants him to finish the project. He also gave you a hint that your further promotion as additional chief engineer is under consideration with the ministry. However, you strongly felt that the minor crack in the pier of elevated corridor will adversely affect the health and life of the bridge and thereby it will be very dangerous to not repair the elevated corridor. Under the given conditions, what are the options available to you as the project manager? What are the ethical dilemmas being faced by the project manager? What are the professional challenges likely to be faced by the project manager and his response to overcome such challenges? What can be the consequences of overlooking observation raised by inspecting team? 4 सवाल हैं. There are 4 questions here and I think these questions can be easily answered. 4 questions. We have got sufficient material with us to write an answer to this question. Case should be clear. The case must be clear that what is happening in this case. There's a bridge that is being constructed. You're the project manager for that particular bridge. An inspection team visits. Inspection team finds out the crack. They suggest that the work be stopped to you. You go to the chief engineer. The chief engineer rules you out, says कि नहीं ऐसा कुछ नहीं होगा. The project will not be stopped because the minister has to inaugurate it in time. The person is far relative. He also says that he ordered you to overlook the observation of inspecting team and continue working with same speed and tempo. You strongly felt that the minor crack in the pier of the elevated corridor will adversely affect the health and life of the bridge and therefore it will be very dangerous not to repair the elevated corridor. What are the options available to you? Again, broadly the options available to us are are 3. Number 1 option available to us is that we submit to the command, we submit to the request of the chief engineer and let the work carry on as it is. That is, we ignore the fault observed and continue with the project as it is. Second option is that we immediately try to correct the project based on recommendations of the inspection team, which will cause a delay of 6 to 4 months in completion of project. Third is that we try to assess the damage more comprehensively for the entire project, see what can be done, what should be done, if we can proceed, as in carry out the entire audit of the project again, so that we are able to more precisely determine what is it that should be done. These are the 3 options available with us. What are the ethical dilemmas being faced by the project manager? देखो पहले सवाल में क्या पूछा है? What are the options available to you as a project manager? In the first option, they have not asked you to choose what you want to do. They have asked you to tell what are the possible options available with you. Clear होना चाहिए. They have asked you to tell what are the possible options available with you. Possible options are 3, as I said. First, ignore. Second, proceed with the recommendations. Third, carry out the audit again. पहले elaborate करके मैंने बता दिया था, this time in short. Second option is, what are the ethical dilemmas being faced by the project manager? You are the project manager. What is the ethical dilemma that you face? Ethical dilemma that you face is, what is a dilemma? Dilemma क्या होता है? Dilemma is a situation in which we are faced with a situation wherein neither of the options that we have are unambiguously right or wrong. we are faced with a situation and there are two options which we have. हम दो ही चीजें कर सकते हैं. We have got two options that we can exercise. Neither of the two options is unambiguously right or wrong. Such a situation is an ethical dilemma. Now, when I say neither of the two options is unambiguously right or wrong, what does it mean? That if something was unambiguously right, मतलब अगर कोई बिल्कुल ही सही चीज होती तब तो कोई ऑप्शन ही नहीं था ना, then तो certainly you would have done that thing which is 100% right. Or if something is unambiguously wrong, something is definitely wrong, then in that case again there is no option. You would obviously reject that and do something else which is maybe not 100% right, but at least it's not completely wrong. An ethical dilemma is a situation in which the options available with you are neither unambiguously right nor unambiguously wrong. Clear? This is what an ethical dilemma is. Let's see what are the ethical dilemmas faced by the project manager in this situation. The ethical dilemma that the project manager faces is, again हमारे को ethical dilemma लिखना है क्या है. Ethical dilemma is that should you proceed with the advice of the inspection team or should you heed to the command of the chief engineer? Should you heed to the advice of the inspection team or should you heed to the command of the project engineer? Listening to advice of the audit team, listening to the advice of the inspection team, where does that come from? It comes from the importance of audit or importance of accountability for a particular project. Because you are the person who is accountable for this project, therefore you must heed to the advice of experts. You must account for the feedback of your work because you are accountable. So ethical dilemma में एक action जो है आपका, that is listening to the advice of inspection team, that action is based on the value of accountability. Versus the second option is, the second option, not neither unambiguously right nor unambiguously wrong, is that you heed to the command of the chief engineer, that is your senior. Your chief engineer is saying that don't do this, carry on with the project because there are some reasons in his own mind. What is this based on? This is based on authority. Some authority higher than you is commanding you to do something. When an authority commands you to do something, your duty as a civil servant is to obey that authority. So the dilemma here is essentially between the values of accountability versus obedience to authority. The ethical dilemma here is basically between accountability for your actions versus obedience to authority. Which of these values will you put at a higher pedestal? Answer is quite obvious, because that you will put accountability at a higher pedestal, not obedience. You should abide by authority, but at the same time, when it seems that authority is acting under extraneous influences, when it seems that authority is not acting in the best interest of the duty assigned to that authority, in that case, you must not obey the authority. So here the dilemma is between being accountable for the task that has been given to you or being obedient to the authority. This is the ethical dilemma. Choose nahi karna hai. Choose, if you want to choose what is it that you are going to do, certainly you can choose, right? One line regarding what have you chosen in this case. But ethical dilemma must be written in this manner, that the dilemma here is between accountability versus obedience to authority. Third, what are the professional challenges likely to be faced by the project manager and his response to overcome such challenges? What are the professional challenges that you will face? Multiple professional challenges होंगे. लिखो 1, 2, 3, 4 करके. What professional challenges will you be facing? First professional challenge that you will face is, for example, how would you convince the chief engineer regarding the advice of inspection team? That is a professional challenge. The professional challenge of convincing the chief engineer regarding expert advice. experts have given some advice. The challenge is to convince the chief engineer. First challenge, how would you overcome this challenge? You would overcome this challenge by carrying out the audit or inspection again, and then finding out the results, seeing whether the results are in agreement with the earlier audit. If results are in agreement with the earlier audit, then you would forcefully put your point that this has been the ruling of, this has been these are the finding of inspection team, and therefore if you want to overrule, you must sign here. This is how you will face these challenges, professional challenges. What other professional challenges will be there? Professional challenges might be there in terms of your professional, professional progress of your career. Your career will be able to progress. Your career will be able, it seems that completing this project on time is an important milestone or landmark which will help your career to accelerate at a fast pace, because you are the project manager here. If you are able to do this, probably your career will progress fast. Again, a professional challenge that if it is not completed in a time bound manner, then there might be consequences on the career. Career growth might suffer. How would you address this? You would address this simply by ensuring that the work takes place. Work is carried on at a fast pace and tempo. At the same time, quality of work does not get compromised only because of fast pace. This is how you will address this challenge. Quality is equally important, if not more, as compared to the timely pace of the timely requirement of completion of this project. बाकी और challenges भी होंगे. There would be other challenges as well in this project. For example, other challenges that are going to be are with respect to how do you deal with the issue of not being able to complete the project on time in front of the public or the media. Again, that can also be one of the professional challenges in this case, but again, we are not concerned with that. Isko aapko, if you want to write, you can write this, but these are the two major challenges that you should be concerned about. What can be the consequence of overlooking the observations raised by the inspecting team? What can be the consequences of overlooking the observations raised by the inspecting team? If you overlook what the inspection team has suggested, certainly there would be many consequences. First consequence, on professional side. On professional side, you are acting unprofessionally by not listening to the advice of experts. Second consequence, if you overlook the recommendation, probability is that there is going to be loss of life and property in the long run on this particular project. Third consequence is there is going to be loss of public money which will be wasted in construction, in making this substandard public project. और भी consequences होते हैं, आप लिख सकते हो, but you can broadly refer to these consequences. This is how you answer these 4 points, 4 questions asked in this particular question. I hope I've made myself clear to everybody. Let's move on to the next question, question number 10. The COVID pandemic has quickly spread to various countries as of May 8th, 2020. मुझे लगता है जो पेपर जो बनाया गया था, ये पेपर बनाते समय, ये पेपर मेरे को लग रहा है 2020 में बना लिया गया था, because now we are seeing two questions of such nature which are a bit old. Sorry, I think that the questions that are there in this case, in this paper, were framed a little bit earlier, because it seems that they have got a little bit older data. Pandemic has quickly spread to various countries as on May 8th, 2020. In India, 56,342 positive cases. लॉल इतने तो एक दिन में अभी भी इससे ज़्यादा आ रहे हैं एक दिन में. Have been reported. Anyways, the question is a bit more nuanced than this. India, with a population of more than 135 billion, had difficulty in controlling the transmission of coronavirus amongst its population. Multiple strategies became necessary to handle this outbreak. The Ministry of Health and Family Welfare of India raised awareness about this outbreak and to take all necessary actions to control the spread of COVID-19. Indian government implemented a 55-day lockdown throughout the country to reduce transmission of the virus. Schools and colleges had shifted to alternative mode of teaching, learning, evaluation and certification. Online mode became popular during these days. India was not prepared for a sudden onslaught of such a crisis due to limited infrastructure in terms of human resource, money and other facilities needed for taking care of this situation. The disease did not spare anybody irrespective of caste, creed, religion on the one hand and have or have not on the other. Deficiencies in hospital beds, oxygen cylinders, ambulances, hospital staff and crematorium were the most crucial aspects. You are a hospital administrator in a particular hospital at the time when coronavirus had attacked large number of people and patients were pouring into the hospital day in and day out. What are your criteria and justification for putting your clinical and non-clinical staff to attend to patients, knowing fully well that it is highly infectious disease and resources and infrastructure are limited? If yours is a private hospital, whether your justification and decision would remain the same as that of public hospital? ये question बहुत अच्छा है. The question is really good, as in what the question is trying to test. That test is really important. सवाल क्या चीज टेस्ट कर रहा है ये हमारे लिए जानना जरूरी है. What are your criteria? ऊपर की सब it's just background building. Question is basically, question केवल यही है, the background for this is basically starting here. Deficiencies in hospital beds, oxygen cylinders, ambulances, hospital staff and crematorium were the most crucial aspects. You are the hospital administrator in a public hospital at the time when coronavirus had attacked large number of people and patients were pouring into hospital day in and day out. What are your criteria and justification for putting your clinical and non-clinical staff to attend to the patients, knowing fully well that it is highly infectious disease and resources and infrastructure are limited? So क्या चीज पूछ रहा है इस सवाल में कि आपके क्राइटेरिया बताओ, टेल मी व्हाट योर क्राइटेरिया इज एंड व्हाट इज द जस्टिफिकेशन. What is your criteria and what is the justification for putting your clinical and non-clinical staff to attend to patients, knowing fully well that it is highly infectious disease and resources and infrastructure are limited? किस क्राइटेरिया के बेसिस पे आप अपने स्टाफ को बोलोगे? Will you tell your staff? What would be the justification that you will provide? Criteria and justification for putting your clinical and non-clinical staff to attend to the patients, knowing fully well that it is highly infectious disease and resources and infrastructure are limited. I hope question is very clear. Really good question, nicely formulated question. Let's try to answer this question. First of all, the first and foremost criteria that we'll be using to identify our clinical and non-clinical staff and the justification behind that would be that there should be a mandatory use of masks and PPE kit and all the necessary protective gear. The criteria would be mandatory use of mask, PPE kits and protective gear. The justification is that this is for their own protection because it is a highly contagious disease, highly infectious disease, plus as well as protection of their loved and near ones. That is the first criteria that we'll be using. Second criteria that we'll make sure is that there are barriers to contact. Apart from masks, PPE, etc., there must be barriers to contact. For example, there should be a proper glass screen between the doctor and the patient, between the hospital staff, doctor के सिवा बाकी भी hospital staff में, nurses के सिवा, doctors के सिवा, there is so much non-clinical staff as well. The billers, the people at the reception, all these people, there must be proper glass chamber that separates them from anybody who is coming in contact with them. The justification again being the disease is highly contagious, highly infectious. The criteria can, one more criteria can be that those doctors and those staff which have any issue in attending to patients in such a case, they can be given an option of staying at home and attending to patients from there. I'll repeat, doctors or any medical staff which can remotely work, who can remotely work, they should be given an option to stay at home and remotely work from there like anyone else. At the same time, it's not possible for all the doctors and all the staff to work remotely. If given an option, everybody would like to stay away from this. Schools के cases में children and teacher can stay away from each other. IT professional के case में you can stay away from each other. In case of me teaching you, we can stay away from each other. But in case of doctor, a doctor cannot stay away from the patient. A hospital staff cannot stay away from the patient. A hospital staff, given an option, they would like to stay away, but they cannot stay away from the patient. That is what their duty requires them to do. At the same time, some of the staff, including clinical, non-clinical staff, including the doctors, if it is possible, then they, based on a certain criteria, that if they want, based on certain criteria, they can be given an option, they can also work remotely. Justification again being that we want to minimize the number of contacts, number of independent contact that people come into with, and therefore if somebody is uncomfortable, then they should also be given an option to work remotely. At the same time, you must also motivate your staff, keep your staff motivated in order to attend to patients, because it is their responsibility, it is on their shoulders that the entire health infrastructure, not just health, but the entire social infrastructure of the country rests upon. Continuous motivation must be provided. Emotional intelligent criteria must be laid in order for doctors, clinical staff and non-clinical staff in order to deal with patients and their relatives. It is a time when the hospitals are overwhelmed, filled to their capacities. Emotional intelligence becomes exceptionally important in such times to deal with patients and their relatives. People dying around you, people not knowing what to do, nobody is attending to those patients. Most importantly, you require somebody to be emotionally intelligent. Hire some people for emotional training as part of your clinical and as part of your non-clinical staff. Organize conferences immediately so that people are made aware of what their duties are in such a situation. This is not a normal time. You should make them explicitly aware of their duties and responsibilities in such times. Criterias and justification with respect to treatment of patients that are diagnosed with this disease. Criterias and justification with respect to disposal of dead bodies. Again, those must also be clearly laid down with proper justifications. So these are some things that you can write in your answer with respect to criterias and justifications for putting your clinical and non-clinical staff to attend to such patients. One more thing that should be focusing upon is to write down about how do you take care of or how do you treat the staff that has been affected. Staff that has been affected, staff that has been vaccinated. Obviously, you have to write in your answer that we will motivate them to get vaccinated as quickly as possible on availability, get their precautionary doses as quickly as possible. Those who have been affected, write down criteria with respect to them as well. Write down criteria with respect to their quarantine, with respect to their family members. Mandatory quarantine hona chahiye. Make sure that you have got proper facilities for their quarantine. Doctors are on shift. Usually आपको मालूम, I think everybody would now know, because everybody who has now lived through this pandemic, you might know that doctors are on shifts of 10 days or 12 days continuously in hospital, and then next 10 days there is no shift for them, but they are quarantined. Usually hospitals provide for some sort of stay. Even government hospitals provide for some sort of stay for their doctors at some place. हो सकता है डॉक्टर्स चले जाते हो अपने घर पे, लेकिन वो यूजुअली अलाउड नहीं होता है. डॉक्टर्स आर रिक्वायर्ड टू स्टे एट क्वारंटाइन सेंटर्स till their quarantine period is there, and then they come back and report to duty for those next 10-14 days. This is usually what happens. This is again criteria and justification for that. If yours is a private hospital, what justification and decision whether your justification and decision would remain the same as that of a public hospital? What are the duties that differentiate public and private hospital? Public hospitals primarily work for public welfare, whereas private hospitals primarily working for public welfare, that is public health, also work for their profits. At a private hospital, criteria can be such that some sort of differential pay can be associated in order to motivate the staff more. Criteria in a private hospital, you can introduce the concept of differential pay so that you can motivate the staff to come to the hospital and attend to patients. Some sort of such pay structure can be initiated, can be developed. At the same time, you would also take care to not charge excessively from your clients, that is your patients. There must be adherence to norms set by the government when it comes to charging the patient for different tests or any kind of treatment. These are some of the extra concerns that must be kept in mind, or some extra steps, criteria or justification that you can take while you are in a private hospital. ठीक है, प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल के अंदर पहली बात, हम कुछ डिफरेंशियल पे स्ट्रक्चर इनिशिएट कर सकते हैं जिससे हम मोटिवेट करें लोगों को, प्लस एडहेरेंस विद गवर्नमेंट गाइडलाइंस विद रिस्पेक्ट टू चार्जिंग ऑफ द पेशेंट्स. In private hospitals, one more important thing that must be taken care of in your answer is accountability in public hospitals is greater as compared to accountability in private hospitals. Accountability when it comes to, please pay attention, accountability when it comes to following the standard protocols, following the laid down protocols of the government. When government lays down a protocol that if, let's say, there is a patient who has come and you have to clean that bed, in a government hospital usually expenditure will be allocated for cleaning that bed, and hence chances that that bed would be cleaned is higher. There is somebody who is responsible for cleaning that bed only. In a private hospital, the norm may be there that you have to clean the bed if some patient comes, but they may not comply with this. Why? Because for them it is a cost. For government hospital, it is a cost that the government bears. For a public hospital, it is a cost that the government is bearing. In private hospital, it is the cost that the private hospital itself will bear. They will try to minimize such compliance costs. So in private hospital, this compliance becomes even more of a headache, as in more of a problem, more of something that is not complied with. So it becomes more careful in a private hospital. Hence your duties increase manifold there. As a hospital administrator, your duties become more pronounced in a private hospital as compared to public hospital when it comes to checking with compliances. This is what you can write in your answer. ठीक है, अगला क्वेश्चन करते हैं. Let's move on to next question now. Question number 11. A reputed food product company based in India developed a food product for the international market and started exporting the same, getting necessary approvals. The company announced that this achievement can also indicate that soon the product will be made available for domestic consumers with almost same quality and health benefits. Accordingly, the company got its products approved by the domestic competent authority and launched the product in Indian market. The company could increase its market share over a period of time and earned substantial profit both domestically and earned substantial profit both domestically and internationally. However, the random sample test conducted by team found the product being sold domestically in variance with the approvals obtained from the competent authority. On further investigation, it was also discovered that the food company was not only selling the products which were not meeting the health standard of the country, but also selling the rejected export products in the domestic market. This episode adversely affected the reputation and profitability of the food company. What action do you visualize should be taken by the competent authority against the food company for violating the laid down domestic food standard and selling rejected export products in the domestic market? What course of action is available with the food company to resolve the crisis and bring back its lost reputation? Examine the ethical dilemmas involved in the case. तो पहला सवाल क्या है? First question is with respect to actions taken by competent authority. What action do you visualize should be taken by competent authority against the food company for violating the laid down domestic food standard and selling rejected export products in domestic market? Basically, this is a question of law. ये law का सवाल है. This is a question with respect to punishment under law, under various laws dealing with non-compliance. This is that question, non-compliance with respect to food safety and security standards. This is first. What action do you visualize should be taken by competent authority against the food company for violating the laid down domestic food standard and selling rejected export products in the domestic market? Second question is with respect to what course of action is available with the food company to resolve the crisis and bring back its lost reputation. And third is examine the ethical dilemma involved in the case. So when we look at the first question, as I said, this is a question of law. Under the food safety and security standards law, what punishment is there? Now, let us assume, I think that would be a very rational assumption, that we don't know at all that what FSSAI law says, what Food Safety and Standards Authority of India law says with respect to such thing. Let's proceed logically. Logically proceed करते हैं कि क्या punishment होनी चाहिए? What punishment should be there in this case? Punishment would pertain to either fine or jail term or revoking of your license or any of these three things together. Either all three or any one or any two taken together. This would be the punishment. The scope of punishment would be either to impose fines or to impose some criminal penalty, impose a criminal liability and therefore some kind of punishment be given, or to revoke your license. These would be the punishment. यही तीन हो सकती हैं punishment. What action do you visualize should be taken by the competent authority against the company? So in your answer, you must write down like this, that action taken by the competent authority must be action which is taken under the relevant law of food security. The relevant provision of food security and food safety and standards law that have been violated must be invoked and adequate punishment under that particular law must be pronounced. From the above case, it seems that the sample that was tested did not find itself to be compliant with the standards against the license was given. Hence, it seems that the company is not following adequate practices. The company got the license for a particular product based on certain quality and standards, whereas when it comes to industrial manufacturing of that product, the company is not following those practices. Hence, company is in violation of the licensing norms. Therefore, first and foremost, the company's license must be revoked immediately. Second, the company must be levied upon a penalty in consonant with the damages that it has done, the loss of public trust that has occurred because of company's actions, and thirdly, the company must be made liable for any negative consequences or side effects that anybody who has yet purchased the product may face. 3 सेट ऑफ पनिशमेंट सुना दिया हमने कंपनी को, यहां पे बिना लॉ जाने हुए, विदाउट नोइंग व्हाट द लॉ इज, 3 पनिशमेंट सुना दी हमने कंपनी को. Logically we'll proceed here. That is what reflects a mature answer. Any punishment that the company is given under this food safety and security standard law, that would pertain to either levying a fine or revoking your license or some kind of criminal liability. What has the company done? The company has committed some sort of a fraud here. What kind of fraud? The company obtained a license for one thing but is producing without checking qualities and standards of the product that it is selling here. In domestic market, the company is not compliant with the standards that it has got the license against. It is also accused of selling the rejected international products in the domestic market. Therefore, the options available with us are that first and foremost, the company's license must be revoked because the company has not produced goods in compliance with the standards that it had promised that it will deliver while getting the license. A penalty should be imposed on the company because of the loss of public trust that its actions have caused. Third, the company must be made liable for any side effect because of the poor quality products that it has sold in the market. Second question is, what course of action is available with the food company to resolve the crisis and bring back its lost reputation? What course of action is available with the food company to resolve the crisis and bring back its lost reputation? What should the company do in this case? For the company must prove its innocence. First and foremost, the company can take recourse to that the product that was tested, the sample that was tested was probably one-off sample. The company must transparently bring out all the compliances that it is following. It must transparently bring out all the steps that it is taking already to ensure that the quality of goods that it produces are up to the mark, are up to the desired standards. Company should promise and company should transparently deliver those things, transparently tell those things to the public and to the authority. The company must be given an opportunity to prove its innocence, innocent until proven guilty. The company must be given an opportunity to prove its innocence, as in the company must be told, the company must tell that this was a case of an accident rather than a deliberate attempt on our side to sell low quality goods. If it is found that rejected goods out of exports are being sold in the domestic market, then merely because they are rejected for exports cannot be the reason. What can be the reason is that are those goods compliant with domestic standards? International standards can be different from domestic standards. The company has promised international standards to be delivered in domestic market. The company has got a license and in that license it has promised certain qualities that it will be taken care of. If what is there in the license, if what is the quality that the company has promised based on which it has got the license, if those aspects जो law में लिखा हुआ है quality standards, इंडियन लॉ में क्या लिखा हुआ है क्वालिटी स्टैंडर्ड्स, अगर आप उन क्वालिटी स्टैंडर्ड के ऊपर खरे उतरते हो, इफ यू आर कंप्लायंट ऑन दोस क्वालिटी स्टैंडर्ड्स, देयर इज नो रीजन व्हाई एनी एक्शन कैन बी टेकन अगेंस्ट यू. You are not compliant with European standards, that's not my problem. European standards are different, American standards are different, Indian standards are different. If a company is selling products in India that are not compliant with American standards, then there is no violation of law that the company has committed. If company is selling, I'll repeat, if the company is selling goods in India that are not compliant with American standards or European standards, but is fully compliant with Indian standards, then there is absolutely no violation of law that the company has committed. Export goods were rejected and they are being sold for domestic consumption. if those goods that are being sold are not in compliance with Indian laws, Indian standards, then the company cannot be fined. If the Indian law is silent, then we can look at international laws which Indian government is a treaty to. There are international laws framed by international standards framed by FAO. कोडेक्स एलिमेंटेरस एक कमीशन है जिसके स्टैंडर्ड्स हम फॉलो करते हैं बिकॉज इंडिया इज अ सिग्नेटरी टू FAO, फूड एंड एग्रीकल्चर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. वी फॉलो मल्टीपल इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड्स विद रिस्पेक्ट टू एग्रीकल्चरल गुड्स, विद रिस्पेक्ट टू एडिबल गुड्स. If the company's products are compliant with those standards, there is no reason why the company should be fined. So this is what the company can do. What course of action is available? The company can justify its goods on the basis that there is no violation of any Indian law or any Indian standard that is in force at the moment. This is the course of action available with the company. The company can claim innocence that it was merely an accident, that is, maybe there were some other factors at play which led to poor quality of the product that was tested. It was an exception rather than rule. The company should submit more samples for quality testing, and based on whether they are compliant or not, the company should submit to the reasoning or the punishment or any of the judgment that is given by a competent authority. What are the ethical dilemmas in this case? The ethical dilemma in this case is quite simple. The ethical dilemma is loss of reputation of an Indian brand. If an Indian brand loses reputation in India, that means other Indian brands which are selling goods outside the country, they will also suffer. It is one company which sells goods outside the country. There are many other companies in India which sell their goods. Many pharma companies indulge in this practice. इंडिया में जो दवाई बेचते हैं वो बहुत ही पुअर क्वालिटी की होती है. बाहर जो बेचते हैं which has to be FDA approved, Foods and Drugs Administration, which is USA's regulatory agency, वहां जो दवाई बेचते हैं वो प्रॉपरली एकदम सारे स्टैंडर्ड्स के साथ कंप्लाई करके बेचते हैं. इंडिया में जो बेचते हैं वो बिल्कुल ही खराब स्टैंडर्ड्स के साथ कंप्लाई करके बेचते हैं. So many companies indulge in this practice. If one Indian company faces a probe in India, not from US, in India, then that leads to loss of reputation, brand value, and obviously business for all other companies. So that becomes the ethical dilemma in this case. Proceeding against an Indian company, that leads to loss of face for Indian companies abroad as well, and hence causes a loss of business. So that becomes ethical dilemma in this particular case. I hope this is clear to everybody. Unintended consequences, as it will hurt the brand image of the country. More ethical dilemma भी लिख सकते हो आप इसमें, और ethical dilemma भी लिख सकते हो with respect to public trust. You can write down about public trust as well. Public trust in the brand of the company, in the name of the company, in this product and other products of the company, all that thing would be lost. So again, this becomes example of some kind of ethical dilemma, but that's not exactly ethical dilemma here. But again, an ethical issue तो वो है ही. Dilemma is more or less loss of the brand image of the country. चलो, let's move on to the last case study. Last case study के ऊपर आते हैं. Pawan is working as an officer in the state government for last 10 years. As a part of routine transfer, he was posted to another department. He joined in a new office along with 5 other colleagues. The head of the office was a senior officer conversant with the functioning of the office. As a part of general inquiry, Pawan gathered that his senior officer carries the reputation of being difficult and insensitive person having his own disturbed family life. Senior है, family से परेशान है, as in family life परेशान है उसकी, has a very disturbed family life. And that senior officer has a reputation of being a difficult person, insensitive person, difficult person, having a bad family life. Not bad, disturbed family life. Initially, all seems to go well. However, after some time, Pawan felt that the senior officer was belittling him and at times was being unreasonable. Whatever suggestions given or views expressed by Pawan in the meetings were summarily rejected and the senior officer would express displeasure in the presence of others. It became a pattern of boss's style of functioning to show him in bad light, highlighting his shortcomings and humiliating publicly. It became apparent that though there are no serious work-related problems or shortcomings, the senior officer was always on one pretext or the other and would scold and shout at him. The continuous harassment and public criticism of Pawan resulted in loss of confidence, self-esteem, and equanimity. Pawan realized that his relations with his senior officer are becoming more toxic, and due to this, he felt perpetually tensed, anxious, and stressed. His mind was occupied with negativity and caused him mental torture, anguish, and agony. Eventually, it badly affected his personal and family life. He was no longer joyous, happy, and contented even at home. Rather, without any reason, he would lose his temper with his wife and other family members. The family environment was no longer pleasant and congenial. His wife, who was always supportive to him, also became a victim of his negativity and hostile behavior. Due to harassment and humiliation suffering by him in the office, comfort and happiness virtually vanished from his life. Thus, it damaged his physical and mental health. More like a soap opera here, more like something that you see on your television. Not exactly a movie, लेकिन टेलीविजन धारावाहिक की किसी कहानी, बट धारावाहिक से ज्यादा certainly a very realistic case है. धारावाहिक भी टेलीविजन के धारावाहिक वो भी कहीं ना कहीं से इंस्पायर्ड ही होते हैं. So certainly again something that is quite fathomable, quite relatable for many people, at least working people, not being content at work, leading to that percolation of feeling in their personal life, leading to destruction of their work-life balance, and so on and so forth. What are the options available with Pawan to cope up with the situation? What approach Pawan should adopt for bringing peace, tranquility, and congenial environment in the home and at office? As an outsider, what are your suggestions for both the boss and subordinate to overcome this situation and for improving the work performance, mental and emotional hygiene? In the above scenario, what type of training would you suggest for officers at various levels in the government offices? अब देखो इस सवाल में एक अच्छी बात है. Even though all of that what is mentioned here in the case, even though all of that is quite generic as in certainly something that we can feel that this might happen to anybody, that way generic. The case study is a bit on the verbose side, ज्यादा बोला बाल, कई सारे adjectives use किए हैं. Resulted in loss of confidence, self-esteem and equanimity. He felt perpetually tensed, anxious and stressed. Mind was occupied with negativity, mental torture, anguish and agony. Affected personal life. He was no longer joyous, happy, content. Environment was no longer pleasant and congenial. Harassment and humiliation and suffering led to virtual banishment of comfort and happiness from his life. Thus it damages physical and mental health. तो इतना कुछ लिखने की बजाय if they could have simply written this line that they damaged the physical and mental health, then that would have also conveyed the same meaning. So you can certainly see loss of confidence, self-esteem, equanimity. इतनी ज्यादा verbosity है केस में. There is so much verbosity in this case. Verbosity मतलब बार बार सेम चीज रिपीट करिए अलग अलग एडजेक्टिव्स का यूज करके. This is more of like some civil servant writing this case, some civil servant preparing this case and tried to express his English language skill. और some professor writing his skill, कोई किसी को लिखने का बहुत शौक है तो कोई poet ने मान लो कोई case study बना दी है. So this is like that. Simply you could have written and that would have conveyed the same meaning. All of this is unnecessary jargonizing the case. But one thing is here in our favor, that there are lot of questions here. कई सारे सवाल हैं यहाँ पे, ये हमारे फेवर की बात है. केस में ऐसा कुछ नहीं, there is nothing, as in length of the case is quite big, but the content of the case is very less. Most of it is verbosity. What is working in our favor in this case is there are 4 questions that we have to answer, and in these questions there are many subparts as well. We will simply write a heading, subheading with as in what has to be answered, and then we can write 1, 2, 3, whatever some small points there. We shall be able to write a good answer to this case easily. इस केस का अच्छा आंसर लिखना बिल्कुल मुश्किल नहीं है. Writing a good answer to this case is certainly not difficult because there are many questions here. Content is less, but because there are multiple questions, we can write that less content multiple times. Not the same content, but different content multiple times. That is working in our advantage. अगर यहाँ पे केवल यही 2 questions होते, केवल A और B सवाल होते, if there were only 2 questions A and B, then it would have been very difficult for us to write a good answer. Then our answer would have become verbose. We would have been repeating things in A and B part, or in A part again and again same चीज को लिखते, B में भी again and again same चीज को लिखते. Because there are multiple questions, our task becomes a little bit easy. हमें अपने आप पे कुछ ज्यादा दिक्कत नहीं होगी, ग्लानी नहीं आएगी आंसर लिखते हुए कि मैं क्या लिख रहा हूं आंसर में. Let's write down small answers to each of these questions. What are the options available with Pawan to cope up with the situation? क्या क्या options हैं पवन के पास to cope up with the situation? That is the first question. Write down 2 or 3 options. Write down 2 or 3 options. At max 2 or 3, not more than that. 4 options भी लिख लीजिए, 3 options are more than sufficient. What are the options available with Pawan to cope up with situation? One option with Pawan to cope up with situation is to train his mind, body and soul, train his mind, body and soul to deal with such situation peacefully. Train yourself to keep calm. Train yourself to separate your personal and professional life. Become thick-skinned. Become insensitive to what he is saying. Focus on your work. Train your mind, body and soul to deal with such a situation. One option can be this. One option is that Pawan can confront. ज्वालामुखी फट जाए कभी. Pawan can confront the boss. Again, that is just a figure of speech. Pawan can confront the boss in this case. Deal with him politely. Convey the problem to him politely. Third option is that Pawan can let the status quo prevail. Let status quo prevail. Let status quo prevail and hope for things to get better. Hope for things to get better. Broadly 3 options are there with Pawan. चौथा ऑप्शन आपको लिखना चाहो लिख सकते हो, रिजाइन कर देंगे. You can also write that option. But there are 3 options available with you. One is you can confront your boss. Second is passive option, wherein you allow time to pass. You allow status quo to prevail and let things get better. Hope for things to get better on their own. हो सकता है बॉस का कुछ मोटिव हो सकता है कुछ भी चीज हो, बॉस इज ट्रेनिंग यू, whatever. You let the situation prevail, let the status quo prevail, hope for things to get better in future. Third option is that Pawan can train his mind, body and soul to remain calm, to keep calm, to not let his work be affected with negative reviews, to not let his personal life be affected by the negative environment of his work. That is the third option with Pawan. Fourth option, you can also write that Pawan can resign and Pawan can look for Pawan can look for a new job. Once he gets it, then he may resign from this job. इस तरह अगर आपको लिखना है तो ये लिखो, ये नहीं सीधा कि resign कर देंगे, resign नहीं. Pawan can look for a new job. If he is able to find a new job, then he can leave this job then and join at some other workplace. अगर आपको लिखना है, otherwise I don't usually suggest that you write that option of resignation. So this is what you can write, how you can answer first question. अच्छा खासा, we can answer this question in elaborate terms. So this is our first answer. What approach should Pawan adopt for bringing peace, tranquility and congenial environment in office and at home? What approach can Pawan adopt for bringing this environment? What approach can Pawan adopt at his home and office to improve the environment? What is it that Pawan can do? क्या कर सकता है Pawan? Pawan can adopt an approach of being a passive listener. Pawan can adopt the approach of, let's say, doing yoga. Pawan can adopt the approach of training his mind so that he is leaving all the negativities at workplace. Question is not leaving negativity at workplace. Question is bringing peace, tranquility and congenial environment at office, at office and at home. सवाल ये है. So what can Pawan do to bring peace, tranquility and congenial environment at office and at home? To bring this at office and at home, what Pawan can do is, Pawan can start putting his demands in a more clear and forceful manner to the boss. That way, Pawan will start to command his own respect. I don't know about boss's respect or not, but Pawan will start to command his own self-respect. Once his own self-respect starts getting commanded, then his environment will start behaving in a manner that the environment also starts to respect him. That way, he can bring peace and congenial environment to his work, and that is expected to automatically flow to his home as well. As an outsider, in B part, I'm sorry, before we move on to part C, in B part, you can also talk about talking to colleagues, venting out along with colleagues, making sure that everybody is heard properly, joining some group therapy sessions so that you can vent out your anger at a place and therefore you are more calm at your home, at your office. This is what you can do along with your colleagues. As an outsider, what are the suggestions for both the boss and subordinate to overcome this situation and for improving the work performance, mental and emotional hygiene? अब इसमें हम क्या क्या कर सकते हैं? What we can do is, we can write subheading suggestions for number one boss, number one boss. In boss में suggestion for boss to overcome the situation for improving work performance, mental and emotional hygiene. How can mental and emotional hygiene be improved? How can work performance be improved for boss? You can give suggestion there. Second, for subordinate, how can work performance be improved and how can mental and emotional hygiene be improved? In this, you can write that work performance can be improved by organizing the work. Probably it is because of poor work culture of the environment of the government, state government office, which is causing this. Poor work culture meaning the boss is not able to express his capability, and therefore that is also leading the boss to be frustrated with his job. What you can do is you can organize the workplace. You can organize your work, and once your work gets organized, then even monotony becomes organized. अगर आपकी लाइफ मोनोटोनस है, अगर आपकी लाइफ में कुछ करने को नहीं है, तो अपनी मोनोटोनी को प्लान करो. प्लान योर मोनोटोनस लाइफ. इफ यू प्लान, you are in your days of where your life is very monotonous, you are simply reading newspapers, attending classes, reading books, etc. और कुछ नहीं करते हो. Plan this monotonicity and you will see that this monotonicity goes away. You will still be doing the same thing, but now it is planned. Plan your work, organize your work. If you organize your work, in that case, you will be able to become better adapted to your work. This way, your work performance and your mental and emotional hygiene improves. Train them, sensitize them, provide them with emotional training, emotional intelligence, etc. And therefore, you try to make them sensitive to the needs of others, to the demands of others. In the above scenario, what type of training would you suggest for officers at various levels in the government offices? What type of training would you suggest? Answer is quite simple. You would suggest training with respect to organizing work, giving targets for themselves, suggesting that work training should be given so that people are able to plan for their work, finish them in targeted time. If pending work is there, that causes frustration. Frustration is caused not by lot of work but by unplanned work. So training must be given for planning, for management. Training must be given for emotional handling of people. Such trainings of emotional intelligence, such trainings of management of work, completion of work on time, setting targets with respect to work, such trainings must be provided to official staff. So leadership training must be provided to official staff, to officers at various levels, so that such situations do not arise. This way we can answer this question. As I said, there is a lot of verbosity here, but because there are multiple questions here, it helps us to answer the question in a manner which is acceptable. Okay? So these are the 6 case studies that were asked this year in the exam. We have come to the end of our discussion and come to the end of this lecture. Tomorrow, the remaining parts of ethics paper would be discussed with you by other faculty. Yesterday there was first session, today is the second session with respect to case studies, and tomorrow there would be another session. With this, let's end the class, let's end this session. I'm sincerely hopeful that you enjoyed this session. I wish all of you all the best in your endeavors, in your preparation. Take care everybody. Goodbye. Good evening.